Okay, I'd like to call a meeting to order. So this is the meeting of the Land Division Committee for November 18th, 2025. I'm Jim McIntosh. I'll be chairing the meeting, and with me are two committee members, Stephen Lewis and Doug James. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest from any of the members? None for me either. I have a motion to approve the Land Division Committee meeting minutes held on October 14th. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? The motion is carried. I have a second motion that the agenda be approved, adopted as presented. All in favor? That's carried as well. Okay, so now we can move along to our first and only delegation. We'll make this short and sweet. I won't go through all of the time limits that we normally place on people because we only got one. So if you could please introduce that, Allison, that'd be great.
John and Mary Hickey submitted consent application B25-064 to create a new residential lot at the corner of Cedar Hill Side Road and 7th Concession South Pakenham within the municipality of Mississippi Mills. The proposed severed and retained lands meet the minimum frontage and area requirements of the local zoning bylaw. The review of the application considered the features of the subject lands as well as the surrounding uses and received comments supporting the application in principle from the Township Conservation and Septic Inspector. One comment from the public was received concerning the application in relation to loss of view and privacy, traffic and safety concerns, and the potential loss of property value and overall appeal. This comment is presented as Appendix E within the report, where the applicant submitted responding comments as Appendix F. Staff are recommending the application be granted provisional approval in accordance with the draft decision presented within Appendix A.
Thank you very much. So, this is Mr. and Mrs. Hickey. Do you wish to make a presentation to the committee?
No, I think like I received the comments from Allison, I guess, about a month ago or 4 or 5 weeks ago from my neighbor, and I addressed them through a written response. And I think I addressed them pretty factual and whatnot, and so I don't think I really have much more to add. If you gentlemen have any questions, I'm more than welcome to answer them, type of thing. But I think my comments were time to comment was addressed through the written process.
Well, maybe what I'll do anyway, Mr. Hickey, is I'll
Sure.
just ask you if you will affirm, do you solemnly affirm that the evidence to be given by you in these proceedings shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
They have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Here.
I don't know what all questions we'll have. I've read through all the reports. I'll turn it over to the committee members. So Stephen, any questions of the applicants?
No, is the other chap on the Zoom meeting, or is there anybody else here?
We received word that the neighbors were unable to attend. They called us yesterday to inform us.
Did they say anything if they still have concerns, or are they happy now, or?
They wish to confirm that their comments would be brought forward to the committee.
Okay, thank you. I have no questions really, Mr. Chair.
They
Thank
didn't
you.
ask that the meeting today be adjourned or anything like that. Oh, good. Okay. Where do they live? I see 2 parcels of land on the other side of Cedar Hill. Which?
Yeah, there's 2 parcels across the road in Cedar Hill Side Road. The one that's on the corner is a county church, and then the one that's up further is the bungalow across from the proposed severance. Yeah,
It's not even across, really.
it's not. And that I addressed that in my
You
comment.
addressed that in one of your
Yeah,
comments.
comments. Yeah, and the thing at this stage of the process, like they provided 5 comments, and 3 of the 5 were flavored towards losing their view. So it was quite obvious that was the intent behind their comments. But you know, at this stage of the process, we haven't even determined where a house is going to be built. We have 120 meters of road frontage on Cedar Hill and 80 meters on the 7th line. We haven't determined where a house is going. But again, as you know, as stated in your report, a view doesn't come into play when you're going through this process. The process is such that that is dealt with through setbacks and et cetera. So, but I responded anyways to their comments about the view, and you're right. It's actually their house is right across from 707 Cedar Hill Side Road, which was severed off my farm a couple of years ago, and that's where my son lives. It's just directly across from it. The proposed severance is to the other side of their house. Yeah. And like I said, we haven't decided where you know, I had full disclosure. I said my daughter's hoping to build there. And, you know, we haven't decided where the house is going. So there, it could be out of their view, it could be in their view, but again, I didn't think that comment was really relevant because it's a very, as you guys know, it's a very structured process going through a severance. And there's issues around views and whatnot aren't, you know, specifically addressed in the process, but the process is such that if you follow it, they're dealt with through setbacks and whatnot, right? So.
One more question.
Sure.
One of the requests or one of the conditions that's coming up or possibly coming up is from the municipality from Mississippi Mills to realign the lot.
Yeah,
Their
I haven't,
position
I haven't followed up with that.
enlarge it, I think.
Yeah, I read that. I read the conditions in the preliminary report, the conditions from the county and the municipality. I did see that. I don't have an answer for that because I don't totally understand it yet. When I went through this process, I was working with the municipality's planner, Jillian, and she's the one we worked together and we decided on this particular location. Now in regards to realigning it with the lot that's been severed, I don't know what they're thinking there. If they wanted it to be the same size as the one that's there, perhaps. And if that's the case, I could look at it. The only reason we come up with the 120 meters by 80 is that the lot that's there was 100 meters square. So if I made the new lot 100 meters square, I'd have 20 meters of basically unusable farmland at the end because it butts up to the Cedar Hill Side Road. So I'd have a sliver of 20 meters of land by 100 meters long, which didn't make any sense to me. So I'm still going to farm the land, even though my daughter's going to be living on it. But, you know, in future, who knows, right? So it made sense to run it right over to the seventh line. So that was my thinking, to try and make the 1 hectare. But it's on my list of things to do. I just didn't think it was appropriate to follow up the municipality at this point until I went through this stage. And once I went through this stage, and if consent for severance is granted, then yeah, that's on my list to understand it and follow up with the municipality.
Because it quite possibly could be a condition of
Yes.
the severance today. And
Which
you-
is fine, yeah.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I have no problem with it. You know, all the conditions that are listed there, I have no problem with them.
And then the survey would,
The survey, and then there's a
Take it
drainage element, which is unknown to me. Like I have a drain, I bought the farm 5 years ago to retire on. And I have a drainage map of the farm, and the map I have shows there is no drainage tile in that particular part of the farm. But I've crafted an email to send to the municipality, but I'm waiting to go through this process before I take the next step. I just don't want to waste anybody's time about following up on conditions until I get consent.
they were my only questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hickey. My only question was on if you knew what was there for the buried drains, and it seems you've got a map, so that those plans are
do.
usually pretty accurate, but
I hope so. It's 36 years old, the map, and when it was done. I know the fields are tile drain. I was surprised when I looked at the map that particular field wasn't tile drain, but it does have a nice slope down. So I can see why maybe it wasn't. I mean, it might have been a cost factor too. But there is a municipal drain that goes through the property, which is great. And, you know, I will definitely, I know the head of the municipality that looks after that, John Gleason. I'll definitely work with John to understand it. And if there's an issue, if we have to get an engineer that's in with that level of expertise to review, we'll definitely will. So I have no problem meeting the conditions at all that are stated.
okay. Hearing that, any other questions from any of the members? All right, so again, I have a motion that's been moved and seconded that the application B 25064 be approved, subject to the conditions presented in the planning report. Any discussion? All in favor? So it's approved. You'll be notified formally in
Yeah.
writing, likely by email as well from
Good.
Allison or
right.
Christie. One of the two will get in touch with you, and the
appreciate it.
conditions outlined, you get 2 years to get it done. So hopefully
Okay.
get it done quicker than that.
Well, thank you everyone for your time. I do want to comment with the county. I've been working with Allison a lot and Christy and Mike, and been very, very helpful. So you have a good team here, and look forward to working with them to meet these conditions.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You.
Okay, I don't think we have any deferred applications or confidential reports, so we can move right on to communications and other business. So I guess, Mike, that's your report. Do you want to say something to start with, or?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure the members obviously read it with interest and took the opportunity to review it in detail. I'm happy to answer any specific questions you have, but the gist of the report is certainly the data suggests that there's a declining trend in terms of the number of applications referred to the Land Division Committee. I expect it will stay around that 10%. Coming to the Land Division Committee, and I know that creates issues for the committee, the volume work for the committee, and making sure that you have a meaningful role as a committee. But I certainly point out in the report that there needs, in my opinion, there needs to be a third or an arm's length adjudication body for applications like this, where there is an objection that cannot be resolved by staff through dialogue before it gets to the point of a decision. Whether or not that's the Land Division Committee in its current form next term, an amended structure for a Land Division Committee, whether it's how you meet or how often you meet or what the membership is comprised of, or if the Land Division Committee is not the ideal model, my recommendation is that it be referred to an existing committee of council. I did look at the issue or the idea of potentially referring objected files to local municipalities. The reason why I haven't recommended it is just when I started to look at the administrative approach of, having to coordinate, okay, what's the next meeting where this can be heard, and then us getting it on the notice, and then them getting confused about getting a notice from the county, but it being held at the local municipality, and then whether or not you're delegating the actual authority to make the decision down or just asking them to make a recommendation back to us and who issues notice of decision. There's a lot of moving parts that certainly could be addressed. But for some of the smaller municipalities without a lot of staff capacity, it might be a bit of a burden. So that's why I'm recommending it stay at the county tier and adjudicated through a county body of some sort. So I think that's the gist of my report, but again, happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Doug, do you have any?
No, I've read through them as well, and my preference is C. If you want to have a look at it.
In terms of increasing the staff delegated authority?
Yes.
Yeah, and I believe in my recommendation does suggest council look at that and perhaps give us some guidelines about the objections to files where the objections don't really have a policy merit. Whether it's about, strictly somebody saying the views from my house will be impacted. Well, that may be true, but is there a policy merit to that planning objection? That's something where council could increase staff delegated authority. But that does also create the implications of even less work for the Land Division Committee if it were brought to bear, which I know is part of the difficulty we have. Scheduling Land Division Committee meetings, moving to a quarterly basis, like I said in the report, I don't think makes sense, because if you just missed the last one and you got to wait 3 months to either have your application heard or to have your objection heard, I think that's an undue delay for somebody in as a part of that process. But yeah, I do recommend that council take a look at broadening delegated authority to staff in concert with the structure of the LDC in the future.
As an example, today's application, could have been a delegated authority because it had nothing to do with planning, uh, planning considerations. It was privacy, traffic, all of those things that really we don't concern ourselves with at the Land Division Committee. Those aren't under our purview.
For sure. And I don't want to, my thinking there is I don't want to wield too heavy of a hammer as a staff member. I do think there is a role for people who have either the political lens or who are appointed by people who have the political accountability through elections to make, these decisions where there are public interest issues. There are some where certain types of objections are clearly not supported by policy. And if that's the limit of the objections, that staff could approve them. But again, I do think there is a fundamental role for an arm's length adjudication body in these types of issues, even if it's just for the sake of people feeling as though they've had their voice heard, they've had their objection heard, they've had it considered, and it's been considered and heard by somebody who's not a staff member or only looking at it from a technical basis.
Stephen, any comments?
I think it's one of these ones, there's probably no right answer. What I think's happening right now, I don't think it's working out very well. And I think it goes back to the fact, if you have a problem or you want to see a problem, okay, we can go to Land Division Committee, but that meeting won't be for 2 or 3 months. And then you say, oh, well, okay, to heck with it. We'll just do, it's the timing problem. And if there's nothing to do, there's no use having meetings. So I just, again, I don't know the right answer. So I always said, if you don't have a solution, don't complain. And that's where I am. So we'll leave it to Mike and the gods on County Council to figure this out.
And one thing I raised in the report, and it may be interesting to have kind of your informal feedback on it before this goes to County Council, is the idea of moving to like completely virtual, right? It would make it easier, less travel. You could call meetings kind of more ad hoc or frequently if it didn't have to have such an impact on your schedule. And it may also draw in other folks who may be interested in Land Division Committee work, who maybe can't give up their morning to be here at the county itself. So that's one where I'd be interested in your feedback, whether you think a total virtual system works. Like I said in the report, though, there are certainly some applicants that want to see the people making the decisions in the flesh, and I can respect and understand that as well.
Maybe a combination of some kind would work, where you could have people that wanted to do virtual could get it. I have no problem with that approach either. But, and then there's the other problem. We make a wise, well-informed, smart decision, and they just appeal it anyway. So here we go again. So you ever think maybe the Land Division Committee should have the same powers as the Land Tribunal?
Yeah, and the Act does contemplate a local appeal body, and that could, I believe that could apply for consents. But again, setting up a whole administrative tribunal apart from the Land Division Committee, who would be well, I guess you could almost have the Land Division Committee be the appeal authority and delegate everything down to staff, so people still have that adjudication process. But that would be something completely different that we'd have to probably do some more analysis on to figure out how that would work and what that would look like. But the tools are in the Act to permit a local appeal body to save things going to the OLT.
I don't think going strictly virtual works, given the current technology that the county's using, and probably most of the technologies that many of our applicants have at home. I know, like a year ago, before I got Starlink, some days I could do a virtual meeting and some days I couldn't. Just it was that much. And I think a lot of people in the country are in the countryside are in that same basis, where they don't have fiber optics yet, and they don't have a really good, strong internet connection that they can count on working all the time. And we've had glitches here when people have tried to come in on Zoom and it hasn't worked. So, the system here isn't foolproof either. So right now we kind of have a hybrid system. If people want to attend by Zoom, that's the only way they can do it. We let them, and it seems to be working okay. I think that's the best we can do for now in that regard. I think we probably could go to meetings that were less frequent, whether it's quarterly or every 2 months. I mean, I look at this application of the guy that made it today. He made that application in June. I'm not sure when the letter from the objector came in, but I don't think we would have held him up that much in the process. We had to wait another month to have a a hearing.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I say 3 months is undue delay, it's, in the big scheme of things, it's not. But, I can understand an applicant coming in and say, I got to wait till when, to get an answer on this. So I guess I'm always just trying to think about the service levels that we provide. And maybe the solution is, we could do a virtual on an as needed basis, but if, folks want it in person, then, we meet quarterly or something like that. And you could refer to a certain file based on the applicant's preference. The other options we talk about in the report, like the Leeds Grenville model, is it's made up of local planners. My hesitation there is that, you get a very technocratic approach to decision making, especially when it comes down to issues of public interest. So I can see the pitfalls of that type of approach. But referring everything to a committee of council as well, county council, may be difficult because, unless it's a new committee, then really you're not saving any effort on any parties. And if it's an existing committee, with the way that we hear folks out here, it's going to add to their agenda timelines for what they're already doing. And some committees have lighter workloads and meet less frequently, like some of the subcommittees. So maybe they're the more ideal body to hear these things out, but then they may not necessarily have the expertise in the land use planning to be able to adjudicate these files properly. So yeah, there's no perfect solution here, but I certainly hear you and respect that. It's got to be work for the members of the Land Division Committee.
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to clarify for the application that was heard today. We did receive the application in June, but it wasn't considered complete to move to that next stage until September. And I do know for the public commenting period, the comment that was received was basically right at the tail end of the 20-day appeal period. So that, while it looks like there was a significant amount of time, really, it was not enough notice to put them on the October agenda, just because of the noticing that we needed it there, which is why we moved it to November. So, oh, and sorry, we also didn't receive comments from the municipality until quite later as well, which holds us up. In general, I know I'm sidetracking from the purpose of our initial report. We do try to streamline the process as much as possible because we do know it can be labor intensive. People don't do consents every day, so the application can be a bit intimidating. And then there's obviously a lot of waiting periods between the different stages themselves. But we do try our best to move things along well, which is why our current level of delegated authority is working really well. We do seem to be moving applications through much quicker than before those permissions were given to staff level. And yeah, we push along as much as we can.
Well, I think there's a variety of reasons that it's moving along quicker now. And of course, we don't see many of the applications anymore. But when we used to look at all the applications, it wasn't uncommon to have an applicant that made an application 2.5 years prior to the hearing being held. And that was quite common. We often had ones that were at least 1.5 years old, and then the worst case scenario is 2.5 years old. And I don't think that's the case now. I think it's much better now. And there's a variety of reasons for that, including the Conservation Authority not having have to take a lot of time to make their responses, and some other agencies are given less time to make responses. So that's helped. But I think the staff are pushing harder to get the responses in a timely fashion.
Yeah, that's right. We do 20 days and then we start following up, and, and most of the agencies, they have their, peak times where we respect that. Okay, maybe take an extra 10, 15 days to get us comments. But for the most part, they've been really good. So yeah, there's some applications we're turning around in 30 to 40 days, from deemed complete. Again, part of the problem always is that people say, well, I made my application in, February. Well, yeah, but it was woefully incomplete, right? And we didn't get all the information to actually deem it complete until June, right? But they still consider the timeline to have started in February, or even when they first consulted with the local planner back at the December prior, right? So timelines are always a fickle thing. But yeah, no, certainly we are priding ourselves on trying to move applications through the process as quick as we can right now.
Well, from what I see, and we only see 10% of the applications now. So, but from what we see, they're moved along a lot quicker than what they have been in the past. And like I said, there's a variety of reasons for that, but we appreciate the work you're doing.
Yeah.
I still think we could look at having less scheduled meetings, whether that's every 2 months and maybe you can give that some thought, Michael. I'm thinking that as soon as an application or an objection comes in or something that forces the need for a hearing to be scheduled, rather than waiting to try and do dispute resolution, put it on the agenda, have the hearing. And use the time between when the hearing's happening and when you make that decision to do this dispute resolution. Because I expect that process takes at least a month, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, most of the, dispute resolution, if somebody objects, they object, and usually there's no convincing them otherwise, even if there isn't policy merit to it. The ones that we resolve usually is more of when somebody when there's just a factual error that once we provide that information, they say, oh, in that case, that's fine, right? And yeah, so the ones where there's a dispute, it's very unlikely that we can convince people otherwise, and nor is it really our role to convince them of anything. We just provide the information and hope that they. So yeah, it's only the cases where it's a factual response, not an emotional response, usually, that we can actually resolve it before it comes to LDC.
Okay, anybody got anything further? So I do have a motion that's moved and seconded that the Land Division Committee direct staff to recommend to the Economic Development Committee to consider expanding staff delegated authority with set guidelines, and that adjudication body for contested applications remain in place, including the current or an amended LDC structure or a committee of county council. All in favor? Doug, did you have comments you want to make, or? Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor, yes. So that's Pat. Maybe what we need is the ability to be able to initiate some costs to people that don't show up for an objection. And I know we don't have that authority, but it just. Anything further from anyone? I don't believe there's anything else on our agenda that we need to do. No, Allison, you're shaking your head, so we're good. Okay, so I have a motion that the meeting does now adjourn at, I'm going to call it 10:30. All in favor? That's carried.